I don't know if I don't know if we need to do a recording, seeing
Well,
that.
I think I'd rather have it on there just saying that we knew it was an informational meeting. As opposed to an actual meeting because if Sue shows, then it will be a meeting.
Well,
Up to
we
you.
have to, then we open it up. Okay, maybe.
So do you want me to
Maybe
stop
just-
the recording or start it again or leave it on?
If the recording's important for the committee, then. Like if we're gonna review it again.
Yeah, I would say I would rather have it on so that anybody who wasn't able to attend can maybe look back at it.
All right.
Okay, so it's on right now, so if you want.
This is an informational session, there's no quorum. We're not opening it up until we get another member.
Oh,
and
Joe has just joined us, so give me just a
All
moment
right.
to promote him. And we can have a quorum.
Okay.
And here is Joe. Welcome, Joe.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
tired.
I'm sorry.
Okay. How are you? How's your trip?
Not as lovely as I would have liked, but I will go into detail another time. Basically, I was on vacation, I came back and I had COVID, so
Oh, God. Okay.
not a great time. Tom, are you gonna share the agenda or do you want me to?
Well, do you have the draft copy that I resent back to you?
Yes, I have that in my email that I
Okay.
can open and
Okay.
show
So do we
you.
want to officially open the
Yeah,
meeting?
whenever you're ready,
Okay,
ready, John. Yeah.
okay.
We have 5.
Meeting of the Stormwater Bylaw Working Group coming to order on Tuesday, May 13th. Yeah, roll call here. We know that Kevin and Josh are not here. Janine,
Here.
Trip, Joe,
Here.
Deb,
Here.
Sue, not yet. Preston, Tom,
Here,
John here. So we have a quorum, and Joe, you were the quorum maker tonight.
Oh, I should have stayed away.
Congratulations, you get the prize. What that is, we don't know yet, but I'm sharing the meeting agenda now. I am gonna stop my video just for the moment because my screen is small and I don't have enough room on it to see both at the same time. So here is the agenda. The call to order, which we just did. I did post meeting minutes, but not until last night. So I don't know if that's enough time for anybody to have looked at them or review them. So if we want to hold off on that till next meeting of approving meeting minutes from the 23rd,
I think we
or do we
hold
want to
off.
look at them now?
I suggest we hold off. I haven't seen them. I looked yesterday and they weren't there, but you must
Yeah, I
have
didn't
slipped.
I didn't get them in until last night later, so
Yeah,
so
totally.
that's fine.
So let's just save them.
Okay, so let's go to, let me share. Change what I'm sharing to the draft bylaw with the notes that Tom put in. Oh, is that Sue?
Yeah, did you get my email?
yes.
I did get
Yep.
your email. Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry.
So it was a competition between you and Joe to see who was gonna make the quorum, and you both came through.
Oh, there's this. Oh, and that's it?
Yeah, we got the
Yep.
quorum.
So Deb is online, Janine is online, I am online, Joe is online, and you, John, and Tom.
Wait, Debbie.
Debbie's
She's
online.
online.
Okay.
We're up there.
So
Doesn't want
the
to show
draft.
face.
Hi, Sue.
Yeah.
I'll show my
Hi,
face.
Deb.
You need an icon like mine.
Gotta get my glasses on.
You see my icon, right?
Nice,
Like it?
nice.
So
That's a good one.
Okay, so we are gonna go over the comments made by legal. They did do a review of the draft that we sent them, excluding the edits we made last meeting with the enforcement section and the definitions, because we haven't gone through the definitions yet. The enforcement section wasn't done at the time, and they just went over the draft as it was prior to that. And we're also foregoing the accepting of the meeting minutes from last, because I only finished them last night, given I was out for 2 weeks, so that was not completed in time for this meeting, so we have until the next meeting to accept and approve those. So if you want to take a look at those, they are in the SharePoint folder. And I can share them by email if you need. So Tom put in all incorporated comments from legal as well as some comments of his own. So first and foremost, page 1, he commented the change to the Needham icon. So I assume this is supposed to be that new logo, correct?
Yes, yep.
Okay. We did
Geez, we've
not.
still been told that we can't use the new logo.
I heard last week. They want us to start using, in fact, it actually changed on my phone overnight. Went to,
Really?
Yeah,
Hey, Kim, before we
Yes.
dive into the details, just. I believe that Tom has a meeting with the attorney tomorrow,
yes,
which is good, so. I think our focus ought to be on sort of some bigger picture stuff of any input we can give him. In that meeting. I'm not sure, sort of grinding through the details. You know, how productive that's gonna be, so. Cause nobody has seen a few of us have seen the letter. And also I had a chance to go in and look at their markup, which. I think their letter captured the kind of the major stuff. So
Okay.
just perspective for everybody is that we've got an opportunity to try to clarify, and there's a couple fairly significant. Issues I felt, and we'll get to them as we kind of march through the points.
Okay.
yeah, so. How I put the comment in is I kind of copied and pasted, the legals. And I reference it as legal. Otherwise it's mine. Cause I could not copy the comment itself, I only could copy the contents. So,
So you commenting on their markup of the document?
I didn't comment on their comments, so, but I commented on the document and then I added their comments into the document. Cause it was, I started doing my markups and then they submitted that, and then I just, so I just copied theirs into one
Okay.
document rather than several documents.
So do you want me just to go
Okay.
through the legal ones? Would that be helpful,
Yeah.
Sean?
I mean, I think another approach would be to go to their letter with the 5 points in the letter, which I think is really the guts of what they're questioning and commenting on, as opposed to going through every specific thing in the markup, and we probably get there either way, but
Yeah, do you wanna show that?
do you have the letter?
Yep.
Kim?
Give me just a moment to pull it up and I can absolutely do that.
Yeah, they broke it down into some categories, whereas the other attorney went through, specific language to comment on.
Just a second.
Yeah,
to
so-
get the email.
So I gather we have we use an outside attorney for this kind of stuff?
No, it's the town council. It's Harrington and
So they're not, so they're an outside counsel working for the town as opposed to a town employee who is.
right, I guess, I mean, is he considered an employee?
I mean, his letterhead is off of his law
Yeah,
firm, so I
yeah.
assume he's
Yeah,
a private hired gun contractor.
yeah. He's our on-call attorney.
But he's the regular one that's.
Yes. Yeah, he's the one who sits at town meeting, he's the one who. He comes in once a week, he goes through all the town offices.
Okay.
He hasn't made it up here lately, but because he's probably gets stuck at town hall,
No,
Those
I've
are
been
the-
trying to get a hold of him for 2 months.
yeah,
What's his name?
Chris Heath,
Oh, yeah, okay. Was that on SharePoint?
No, this wasn't, it was
Yeah,
just sent to a couple of us, so.
yeah. Yeah, we were gonna,
Kevin sent it to me and to Tom and to Kim, and it didn't get distributed any
yeah,
further that unless Kim is. Can
yeah,
post
I
it.
probably should have put it on the agenda. But we're sending it out right now, so.
So let me stop sharing for just a moment, let's see the entire screen. Yeah,
It's
okay.
not that much.
So this here is the email that we received back about their review.
Yeah,
That
that's
they
pretty
reviewed the draft.
small, but-
Whoops.
Can you magnify that?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I'll do it.
This is the,
How's that?
I was at eye exam today, so my. I've been
Is that
tested.
better or do you need it bigger?
Need it
Is that
bigger,
better? Bigger.
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 You see it?
I can see it now.
Well, you probably got a hard copy of it anyhow, so.
Let me try something else here. Hold on a second.
I mean, if the people online can see it. And Sue can see it,
I can see it.
I can see it.
we're good. We're good, we're
Okay.
good, Kim.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is the email that we received back about their review, in the stating that in the attached draft, all of their comments are attributed to Ivira Freed, resident stormwater bylaw expert. They've shared some general comments in the margins and did not make substantial revisions to the draft yet. Their thought was that a discussion with the chair and vice chair or the full committee might be useful before we proceed further. Comments in the document generally fall within the following categories. The first one being the draft appears to be addressing 3 separate concepts, illicit discharges, stormwater management, and land disturbances. He questions whether or not we could, hold on. We could divide the bylaw up differently to make it more user-friendly in terms of those concepts. He also states it's a bit unclear who is responsible for issuance of the permit, given the bylaw's application to a particular project depends in part on who is issuing the permit. It is important to clarify who is responsible in each instance. It's also unclear whether there are 2 separate permits covered by this bylaw or one, for example, a stormwater permit and a land disturbance permit. And the bylaw is not drafted in a manner that conforms to Needham's model, which, with that being said, I want to say that the way it was drafted right now is more for ease of review for us. Putting it into the way the bylaw formats now is fine, and I can do that at any time. It's just, I just put it in this kind of document format for ease of review for us and to be able to compare the examples as well. So I don't really know if that's an issue that needs to be discussed or just something we need to decide. Once we get the substance of this bylaw into more or less final form, he'd like to put in some additional work to make this fit within the style and formatting of the existing general bylaws. There are a few sections of the bylaw that internally conflict, for example, sections 4.4 and section 10.2. So those are the comments that they have for the meeting, for the draft. So let me bring up the draft
Can I, hold on,
Yep,
can I come back to number 4?
yes.
Yeah, I don't, I don't have a clue what he's talking about. What is
So
this
basically, it's
model?
not, so it's not in the same format. So if you look at our general bylaws right now, so if you look at our, let me pull up the general.
I've never seen our general bylaws, so I don't know.
Oh, okay,
I mean, maybe I'm overreacting, but it just sounds to me like it's a major overhaul of the formatting and the organization of what we've done to this point.
so if
But
you look at it
if-
right now,
I think we're gonna replace, what, section 7,
yeah, Article 7 is what we currently
article
have.
7.
So it looks like this. As opposed to a separate standalone document that I.
So. And if Kim, if you and Tom feel this is an easy fix, then I'll get off of the bandwagon. I was just very concerned that we were, because he says he's gonna spend several days, reworking it to make it fit. What's that all about? So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Yeah,
conversation.
no, so in
We'll start with that.
comparisons, so if I show you in comparison this versus what we have now, which is this. Right? So we have it sort of as in chapter and verse type sections, basically, in my view, to basically be more reviewer friendly. It really didn't, to me, it was more about getting the content than it was about the format of it. So in other
Yeah,
words,
and
oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, and Kim, further to your point, I think we're also, from the get-go, we're trying to sort of stay with the existing document, the bylaw that we had, and trying to enhance it, add and delete, so.
Right,
that
so
to me-
basically basically what I would have to do, or the only thing I would be doing is, so section 7.1 is purpose. I would change it to section 1 general. And then we would have 7.11 is purpose and 7.12 is objective. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, no, if he isn't, if it's, I'm good with what you're saying, I mean, it just kind of struck me that it was some brand new model that was being rolled out, so it's something that just needs to conform with what the attorneys want. So it's not a content issue or even an organizational issue, it's just more of a formatting issue.
Yeah, basically, or at least that's what I read to it. Tom, please tell me if
Okay,
you disagree.
and Tom, maybe clarify that,
Yeah,
to be sure that, he's not thinking
Yeah, that's
more
what,
drastically.
yeah, that's what I was assuming too, but I also wanted to check with them, make sure that. Like he might not want table of contents in the cover.
I mean, Kim,
Right.
one, just again on more sort of general comments, the first comment, which I found a little bit odd about the interpretation that we've got 3 separate concepts, illicit discharges, which is really a minor part of the document. It's one section.
Yeah.
Stormwater management, land disturbance, that's the guts of the document, and it's all intertwined, so you really can't put it in 2 separate sections, so you hopefully, Tom, can enlighten them on why we put it together the way we have.
Well, if I can comment on that a little bit, I do think, part of what they're saying is that from a user point of view, it would be better. I mean, I've been kind of saying this from the beginning, and I thought it should be too. When we say illicit discharge, we're talking really about NEPDs, if I'm not mistaken, which is a big part of the bylaw.
Yep.
And then we have the quantity issue on private properties. So at minimum, I think there's those two. There are 2 separate intents, two separate purposes here. One to comply with NEPDs, which your average builder has no clue, and your average building inspector, quite frankly, has no clue what that's about. And I don't want to have to enforce or be seen as enforcing or expected to enforce or administer the NEPDES program in any way. But I'm happy, and I think it's part of our responsibility on the building department to administer, enforce the the quantity issues and storing stuff on properties that get expanded or newly rebuilt or demolished or rebuilt, whatever. Anything that falls under a building permit. So I do see that at least I do get their point about their, being a couple separate issues here. They're seeing three because, and I kind of agree too, that land disturbance, land disturbance can be a big issue when you if you had a big tract of land, or, not that we have that many left, but if you had a big tract of land that, a developer was going to come in and substantially change, that could be its own category in some respects. So
Yeah, I think the
that's
point
my
we were
take
trying-
on that.
Yeah, I think the point we were trying to make with using the land disturbance is the wording of land disturbance versus like a square footage of impervious cover or something like that. So basically, we don't want the applicability of the bylaw to be based on 250 square feet of impervious cover. We want it to be based on land disturbance. So even if you're not using impervious cover, maybe you're disturbing a greater portion of land, like removing all the trees in your yard. You're disturbing a good amount of land and therefore changing the flow of water on your property. That would be an indicative trigger to the bylaw.
Yeah, that's what like a changing grade. Not
Correct. Yes.
I think we should stay away from trees because we have a separate tree committee working on a separate tree bylaw. So we
Correct.
don't
Yes.
spend any time doing trees when someone else is already doing that. But yes,
Yeah. So I
definitely
don't.
change of grade is a crucial part of it.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily see that there are three separate concepts. We were trying to get across that we're looking at it more as a land disturbance as opposed to a quantity of square footage that is pervious or impervious.
Yeah.
But the way it reads apparently does not, which is good to know, does not clearly indicate that. So maybe we need to state that more in the purpose and the objective areas to kind of make that clearer. But separating it into illicit discharges and stormwater management might be a way to go about it, but that would be up to the committee to decide if that is how you want to proceed or go forward.
Right, but when you say that, when you say illicit discharges, ultimately, we're talking about the bigger picture NEPDES, is that correct?
Correct. The illicit discharges is the TMDLs into water bodies and phosphorus and those kinds of things, yes. The stormwater management, I think what he's talking about is more the quantity of water that is moving around in town.
Yes, I agree. So
That's
my
how I
point.
see it.
I'll shut up.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Again, I'm not technically in the committee and I'm not technically here. So what are your thoughts as far as what that number one statement is? John, Sue, Deb, Janine.
I mean, to me, it's what Joe is describing. And that's why we've got section 8 in the document that speaks to it. But it's really not, the main thrust of what this document is focusing on. Erosion control and land disturbance is, what we're trying to speak to.
Yeah, as well as the previous, the bylaw that we have right now. The DPW was the reviewer for illicit discharges. So like any sedimentation going is not in the wetland area, outside the 100-foot, it has nothing to do with, it may have something to do with construction site or not, but if it's being discharged into the town's drainage system, the DPW has the authority to check into it.
Right,
So it's not like a permit.
right. So Tom, do you wanna, when you talk to him tomorrow, do you wanna bring up, so point one? Though he identifies three different concepts, technically speaking, we're really only trying to address two concepts, being the quantity and the quality, so illicit discharges and then stormwater management. And then land disturbance is just more of a vernacular that we need to try and use as opposed to square footage of impervious cover. Number one,
Yeah.
to be clearer as to what we are regulating, but also for us to capture more possible activities that need to be addressed. Because if we just do the square footage based on a building or based on impervious cover, it doesn't address all those things, like Joe said, of, you know, regrading your entire lot isn't addressed in a building permit necessarily unless it's part of building a house on it. But if they just, you know, rip up the whole lot and decide to regrade it, we're not catching that in anything.
Yeah. Hey, just one more comment. I'm looking at the first sentence. You know, before we spend too much time debating what they say or what they mean,
Mhm.
the first sentence says, Ivrea Freed, our resident stormwater bylaw expert. We need her or him in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
If that person's a stormwater bylaw expert, maybe they could help steer us more concisely than us keep going back and forth about these different points.
Yeah, I don't know who this
The
individual
experts
is.
are, I mean, the experts already, you know, that's all embedded in their comments. It's that person whose name is listed in the memo has already laid out all of him or hers commentary. So it's all there.
Right, but if they were in the
I don't
room to
think
discuss this, they do mention, hey, let's come in and have a meeting on this.
Well, and that's what Tom is doing tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
Tom
mean,
is meeting with Chris tomorrow to go over the comments and what our responses to them are. So I think if we get a little bit more clarification with him as to what their thoughts are, and then what our stance or our intentions have been with this document to begin with, it might make it a little bit more, a little bit better in our discussion when they come into the room with us. You know what I'm saying, Joe? Like not,
Yeah, I don't think this is a one meeting thing. This is more just to start the conversation than, you know, because it was set up fairly quick, as Debbie was saying. It's hard to reach Chris. So
Yeah.
when I finally got him nailed down to a date and time, it was like, we're already up against the stormwater meeting that we have right now, so.
I mean, I wonder if the resident stormwater expert, if Ira Freed, is gonna be perhaps in your meeting.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be great, and then you can kind of hear from the both of them at the same time. Yeah, I kind of echo what Joe is saying, that to spend too much time hammering on it here when there's maybe some clarifications that can easily come through, and perhaps it channels it down to 2 or 3 big issues, which we as a full group can then evaluate, and if we need to have them back here for a meeting, but maybe it
yeah,
is.
I'm thinking that the comment, like addressing the comments that they've made here and being able to give Tom some information as far as what to address in his conversation with Chris tomorrow, and maybe looking at the draft through the lens of what we are trying to accomplish with with the edits that we're suggesting. Maybe that would inform this, that his colleague, how to better phrase whatever bylaw or whatever portion of the bylaw that they are questioning. You know what I'm saying?
And I totally agree with that, and I think giving them sort of the perspective of how we went about this whole effort, that we tried to determine what were the deficiencies at the beginning, and we got input. And we really looked at other ordinances. I mean, we went about it in a very thoughtful way, and this is sort of what we landed on. I think that will be educational for them. I hope.
Okay, so for number one response, Tom, are you prepared to communicate with Chris as far as the what we are actually trying, like, maybe we agree that maybe it can be segmented into two sections, but technically speaking, one is for NIFTY's compliance, which is more the quality. And then stormwater management is for townwide compliance, which is for the quantity, addressing those two things, and that land disturbance is more of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's more of a way of thinking of a vernacular for what would be applicable to the bylaw, as opposed to a square footage of pervious
Yeah,
or impervious cover.
Ultimately, it's part of number two.
Yeah, exactly. Does that sound good, Tom, or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so, do we want to go back to the draft and the comments that they had, or do we want to continue on going through the questions?
I think John wanted to go, you wanted to go through the
Yeah.
question, yeah.
But I'm more interested in being helpful to you, kind of going into the meeting as to
Yeah,
what we can offer.
yeah, to explain it, to Chrissy, would be, yeah, the idea is that, you know, illicit discharges of DPW, this is continuing on the same path as we have right now for the bylaw. Where the, items 2 and 3 is like more stormwater management and trying to collect, permit for the sake of stormwater management.
Yeah, for the sake of quantity, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you break it down even more, I like it, just basically, one would be equivalent to the quality, whereas two is the quantity, two and technically three would be the quantity.
Kim, I hate to
I mean-
say this, but I think ultimately they're gonna say, put the whole thing in a separate permit.
I know. It's okay, Joe, I get it.
Well, if that has to be removed, so be it, I think we should have. They could probably give us some like weasel words that we could put in there so that when we draft the regulation, it will incorporate like large disturbances that may affect abutters, you know.
Yeah, and maybe there's a better way to state it, that, you know, we have the option to have another permit, even though we don't currently have one now. If and when we have one that's developed and formalized, it would still be effective under the bylaws without having to edit again and propose at a town meeting. Basically, we're just I want to get across to Chris that we're trying to make it as broad as possible to be applicable to any changes we have to do, and then the more specific things that may change occur within our regulations document, not necessarily in the bylaw itself. The bylaw needs to be this overreaching or overarching umbrella document that allows for all of the different specificities that we need to do to be able to comply with illicit discharges and with stormwater management. It needs to be not as restrictive as being specific. If that makes sense.
Okay. So item 2,
So it's unclear who's responsible for the issuance of the permit. And generally speaking, we did keep it pretty vague, and we just said, you know, the issuing party, or whatever the words we use were
Authority.
for it. Issuing authority, thank you, Deb.
Mhm.
But issuing authority, because there are so many different departments in this, in conservation, DPW, planning, building, there's just too many departments to say specifically who's responsible for which permit each time. Just that in any instance where whoever the issuing authority is, because nothing says, I don't know, who else issues, the health department wouldn't have something that maybe has a stormwater impact. I don't know that they ever would, but I'm just saying, what if another department comes online and has something that might impact, or be impacted by stormwater? They should be able to apply the same bylaw without, even if they're not specifically called out for that specific permit. It goes back to my stating of the being general enough where we're acknowledging there could be an issuing authority other than building or engineering or water sewer or conservation.
You know, I can see how the attorneys for both points 2 and 3 could have been a bit confused, because I know myself kind of coming into this whole thing cold, that was a bit of a hard concept to grasp in terms of how these multiple departments kind
Yeah.
of work together to handle the permit.
Yeah,
Unlike, I think it was it Natick that they created a new authority that just dealt with stormwater. So we kind of agreed that it works the way we're doing it, we've just got to get the thing enhanced, so. Maybe the attorneys will have some suggestions as to how we can better clarify, this point, because it is a hard one for the average reader to totally understand.
Yeah, so the response to this question, I'm thinking should be, or not the response, but the clarification should come from them to say, how can we word it, or what language can we use to make it clear that any department that issues a permit that has any kind of stormwater implications would be subject to this bylaw, without calling out the specific departments that today have a permit, because we're trying to plan or leave the door open for future departments that may have stormwater implications.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the point is we're trying to work within the existing structure that we have that's basically working. And not trying to sort of revamp this thing totally and make it a total kind of new thing to be looking at as far as the users.
Right, because essentially we don't have one department that issues stormwater permits. We have currently 4 or 5 departments that issue permits with a stormwater component. And that's the difference between us and other towns at the moment. Some towns have decided to make a stormwater authority all its own department. We don't have that here. We're all working under either building, DPW, conservation, planning, other, you know what I mean? So there's several different divisions that are applicable to this. And we want to leave the door open if there are additional departments that might have permits in the future without having to change the bylaw to accommodate that.
In the original stormwater bylaw, which we've been working on, Tom, it wasn't DPW kind of overseeing the other departments issuing permits?
So DPW does not issue like any permits at all, but we have like a review authority to somehow to make it make the process smoother, but the building department issues the building permit, which has a stormwater component, and conservation issues an order conditions, which has a stormwater component to it. So,
I mean, in our original, I don't know if you guys can see my screen with the original, but in our original stormwater bylaw, the way it sits now, it says permitting authority. The municipal board, committee, or department with the authority for issuing permits for construction, including the planning board, conservation, public works, building department, blah, 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 is who's responsible. However, it says with authority for issuing permits for construction. And I think that's where the language that we need to kind of get away from and say issuing permits with a land disturbance affecting water quality and or water quantity is essentially
Exactly. Right,
what we're trying to get across. So regardless of what the permit is, of whether it comes out of planning and zoning, conservation, water sewer drains, building, street permits, anything, if it has any kind of land disturbing activity, that is what is going to precipitate the application of the bylaw as opposed to a construction of a certain amount of impervious cover. Because it's not solely construction, it's land disturbance as well.
Yeah, so, okay.
And
Joe, are
in
you
our,
good? I'm just gonna ask Joe if he's good with kind of the approach we're talking about.
Well, my approach might be a little more radical as I think this through. Just food for thought. You know, the bylaw should stand on its own, and there ultimately should be one authority that administers it. Sometimes hate to use the word enforcement. The risk that we have of including, and no offense to conservation people, but the risk that we have in including planning, zoning, and conservation is the people that it opens up the tendency to get different directives, different interpretations of what the bylaw actually says, as opposed to part of the bylaw. You know, if the zoning board would issue, and the zoning board doesn't do any enforcement on its own. They just, I am the enforcer for zoning. I'm not actually for most planning documents, I am the enforcer for that as well. They don't do any administration of their permits that they issue. It's that falls on me. So, you know, if the zoning board, for example, issued a decision on a particular property, all they really need to do is say, this property shall conform to the stormwater bylaw. They don't need to say any more than that. And then whoever enforces that or administers it in the end looks at that condition and says, yeah, you gotta conform with this. That's my thought. I know that's not how it's kind of written now, or the direction we've been going, but I think that would be a cleaner, more efficient way to go.
I think that's a good point, Joe. I mean, I was actually thinking about that as we're going through these too, is like, what planning board, we get a lot of we see a lot of plans that come through engineering to review, and we set the standard usually like, you need to do this, this, and this for this project. But they usually submit a full set of documents, you know, HydroCAD and stormwater reports, because usually they're dealing with a bigger project, where a single family house is not. So some of these small, 10,000 square foot lots, I'm like, why should they spend $10,000 worth of engineering on a small lot where they can do something more simple? Whereas like a commercial development, they might have acres of land disturbance that they have to deal with. But it does come back to building department and engineering, DPW. Did they build what they said they're gonna build?
Right. And it's us to, it's really up to us to kind of flag that in the beginning of the actual building permit process to say, hey, make sure the documents are here. Yeah, I mean, it would save those departments time as well. If they didn't have to, if they didn't feel they had to make sure, because it would just be duplication. Again, using the planning board as an example, okay, give us all the documents on how you're going to manage your stormwater, and then we have to get it again and make sure it's correct when they finally issue it, or when they finally apply for their building permits or other, street permits, whatever else it may be.
Now, but for conservation though, there could be have no planning, requirements, no ZBA requirements, or maybe not even a building permit requirement, but they're doing some disturbance within the 100 foot of a wetland. You know,
Right.
that should be
Okay,
conservation. Definitely,
all right, I hear you.
so.
So do we think maybe we need to add more to our authority section stating who is responsible based on what we currently have as permits, or I don't know. I'm not sure how to address it.
But Kim, I think you're right, that maybe what the attorneys were reacting to was some of this
Zoning,
confusion,
building,
so
DPW,
maybe it needs to
conservation.
be in the authority section more clearly stated that you know, that DPW really is on point to sort of drive the bus here in stormwater management and incorporating, you know, the inputs from conservation and others. Notwithstanding that there still are gonna be things that conservation is gonna sort of be handling on their own, but. Yeah, cause it is, I can see how it could be confusing, so,
Yeah, I think the structure should be made more clear under authority.
okay,
Yeah, I
thank
agree.
you. Thank you, attorneys, for pointing that out.
So, do we want to put this definition that is in our current bylaw under a topic under authority? And then have the definition also added to our definition section? Don't everybody jump at once.
I don't understand the question. I don't understand the
Yeah, can you
question.
repeat that again?
So would you like me to put permitting authority as a title in our draft under authority? Having like or change 3.1 to 3.2 and say 3.1 being the permitting authority. The issuance of a permit either by any of these departments or even whoever it is, it doesn't even need to be specific departments. But the issuing thing based on land disturbance or quantity of land disturbance versus construction in the definition we currently have. You know what I'm saying? I'll show you what I mean.
Yeah, I agree, but let's not go too deep into it. Let's let the attorney comment specifically on this and how they suggest we administer / enforce or make whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction. Let's get their opinion on what they think is the best way.
Okay, do you want me to put the section in as a placeholder for right now? What, that's highlighted?
I do. I
Sure.
agree.
Yeah, cause I think we're agreeing we wanna get there, but let's let some crafting come from the attorneys as to how they would present it. Anything else we've kind of covered? 2, we talked about 4 at the beginning, and Kim, you assured me that that's not a big deal, and
Well, I wouldn't say it's
Some-
not a big deal. It's just something I can do.
I have 100% faith in Kim on that.
yeah. If you need
I'm sorry,
our
Joe, what did you say?
reinforcements, let us know.
I said I have 100% faith in Kim on that section 4.
I second.
Gee,
So
guys, thanks.
Is there a document which is the Needham model bylaw? Is that a document? Just like we had the model bylaw that we were working with, which was really more of a stormwater model bylaw. Is there a Needham?
I think it's the bylaw itself that they're really referring to.
Okay, sort of the primary bylaw that covers everything?
Yeah,
Okay.
the general bylaw. As
Yeah.
opposed to the zoning bylaw.
Okay. I won't ask to see it.
I can, you want me to email the, bylaw? Well, it's online, it's on the website.
It is
It's
on
a
our
bylaw
website.
/ charter, yeah.
I mean, I don't know, probably not necessary if you all know it and you're good with,
Well, sometimes the formatting does change within that bylaw.
Do I like the way this is formatted? No, but I can work with it.
yeah. Yeah, I just didn't want it to totally upset everything that we started with the original bylaw and the enhancements that we've made. But if it is more formatting,
Yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
it's just it's a matter of just putting it into like section 7.1 as opposed to the sections that I have listed 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be
Okay.
section 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, those types of things.
I think
As for-
we can handle that. And that's actually more what the original bylaw is, all 7-point stuff.
Yeah, because it's an
You-
article with
you-
within our general bylaws. It's not a freestanding bylaw on its own.
But you modified it to make it more user-friendly, I thought. You know, the way we have it right now, 1,
Yeah,
2, 3, it's a heck of a lot easier. So you can't have both user-friendly at the same time you're necessarily following the Magic Needham bylaw format, so.
yeah, I mean, I can format the words. I was more looking for the ability to edit content at this point than the actual final whatever it would look like at the end, just to make sure we keep the same content that we've decided on, or you guys have decided on. It just means I have to figure how to make it look like the other
Yeah.
bylaw. So, okay,
Any chance, Kim, of just reading what, I can't really see it very well, with the permitting authority that you've just inserted
what do you mean reading?
under authority? The first, where you've just inserted,
Section 3,
oh, yeah. So, permitting authority, what does it say there?
I just
3-1.
copied the definition they had on the original, on our original bylaw. Basically, the municipal board, committee, or department with authority for issuing permits, and I changed it from for construction to for land disturbing activities. These include the planning board, conservation commission, department of public works, building department, and zoning board of appeals. I would just like to keep it as broad as possible and not specifically say those departments, because what if we have another department that crops up? So what happens if Gabby, now that we have a sustainability manager, what if she has a sustainability permit coming out at some point? What? I don't want to preclude her from being applicable, having a permit that's applicable to the bylaw. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but again, all she needs to say is comply with the bylaw.
Correct. Yes.
so I'll talk with Chris on what's the proper way to enforce this, because I think I'm hearing what Joe's saying, because there could be some conflicts, and then when it comes down to it, perhaps, it is a building permit that is issued with compliance with the bylaw, and who ensures that it's complied with the bylaw? Well, hopefully the building department in DPW, or it might be a conservation permit, who ensures that it complies? But if it's
Right,
planning
you
board
might
or
need to
zoning, it's always gonna be building in DPW.
Right, it might say, it might be as simple as saying the municipal board, committee, or department with authority for issuing permits for construction and or land disturbing activities. Period, and end it right there.
So is conservation the only other entity that has their own regulations around stormwater?
Yes, I think,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, DPW reviews for planning and zoning for the stormwater, and we get all the paperwork. That comes through, and then we make our comments, and then they incorporate it into the decision.
Well, I put it in there for now. I put it in green highlight so we can say potentially, what if we changed it to this and added this? Would that suffice to clarify who is authorized?
Good.
Thanks.
Okay. Alrighty, back to the comments. Unclear whether there are two separate permits covered by this bylaw or one. Again, it's any permit that has any stormwater implications. I don't know how to say, it's not a specific permit for stormwater. Because neither is it in building, it's part of our building permits. In conservation, it's part of their orders of condition sometimes. In planning or zoning, I don't know what it's part of, but I'm sure it's part of something.
And the attorneys can point out specifically where it was that the confusion was created, and we'll deal with it.
Right, they might have another way to write that language
Yeah.
too, right?
Right.
And
So
I
I
don't
would pose that
know,
question to him about how he came up with, the fact that there's a standalone permit for stormwater, because I don't believe we've stated anywhere that there's a standalone permit.
okay,
Did we ever talk about having a land disturbance permit in, or not? I can't remember.
We talked about the potential of we'd need to develop one. So it's not something we wanted to put in the actual bylaw because we haven't developed it yet, and that could take, I mean, it could take, depending on how many people I have to give me the information, it could take 3 months or a year and a half, depending on the detail of it. And also we'd have to determine what department that falls under for responsibility and what inspections and or what the review process would look like. There's a whole slew of issues with creating another permit, not to say unsurmountable, but they're definitely, there's a lot to go into creating a new permit, and it would also depend on who is responsible for that new type of permit. And is it something, if we had a separate stormwater permit, is it something that somebody has to get in conjunction with a building permit, and therefore the stormwater section comes out of the building permit? Or is it something that could be, so that, in other words, it can be issued with or in tandem with another permit, or on its own as a standalone permit? Both are a possibility, but we'd also have to create it, and we'd have to define where it sits in our structure, in our reporting structure.
and land disturbance is so integrated together with the quantity, controlling the amount
Yeah.
of flow and the amount of water being recharged, so that's why it would be tough to have a separate thing just on land disturbance.
Yep.
And we've tried to enhance and strengthen throughout the document things that point out the land disturbance aspects, more than was originally in there.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to know what gave him the impression that there wasn't a separate stormwater permit? Because as of right now, stormwater is a component of our individual permits. So
Yeah.
that's a question I'd like for you to ask him if you can.
Yep.
And maybe we
Tom's
need
question
to
was
adjust
before.
language.
Was that?
I was just saying your question list is growing.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I was expecting, actually, so, I mean,
How long's the
Well-
meeting?
oh, I don't know, it could only be half an hour, I mean, he's, I mean, we have trouble reaching him, he's busy. And with the home, with all the town meeting stuff, and he
Yeah.
was crazy busy, so.
Well, since we all told you we couldn't join you in the meeting, the least we can do is give you a little ammunition.
Yeah, yeah, quickly answer these, go.
Okay, so the next question was, the bylaw is not drafted in a manner that conforms, and I think we already addressed this sufficiently, that I can re-edit it, so it looks like the
Yeah.
article that's there now, that's fine. And I can totally do that on our, we can accomplish that. The last one was a few sections of the bylaw that internally conflict, section 4.4 and 10.2, so do we want to look at those?
Yes.
Yeah,
Is our current draft. So 4.4. No permit required. And then 10.2. Exempt
Yeah.
activities.
Okay.
Which, this is more talking about the plans that are required just to provide, and then 4.4 is the, an actual permit is not required.
Oh, so there's where they get the impression that there it is right there. There's language that says permit.
Yeah.
So in this whole section, we're talking about a permit, which we don't have one.
Okay, Sherlock Holmes strikes.
Yikes.
Solve the mystery.
So instead of calling it no permit required, do we want, is it just a matter of changing the name of what it is?
Maybe.
But do we then take it out of 10 point, the other one, or do we change this? Do we put the exemptions here, or do we? I mean, that is a good point. There's two.
Well, 10, so section 10 is talking about the erosion and the stormwater and erosion control plan, not a permit.
Okay.
So the exempt activities that do not require a stormwater and erosion control plan are these activities. The 4.2 or whatever, 4.4 is talking about an actual permitted activity at the moment. It's not necessarily talking about the plans that have to be provided for it. It's saying you don't need to get a permit for this as long as
But we
you
don't have,
follow the plans.
we don't have a permit that they can't get.
Well, it's whoever the issuing permit is. So like a building permit is not required, or a conservation permit or whatever for.
I have concerns about section 10. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's a redo.
Okay,
Repeating it.
I think some of this should be in regulations. And, but we did talk about it, and I didn't object to it at that time, so I kind of wondered where my head was. I think. Where's the model? Because we went through it one by one.
We did.
If that was in the model, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
just. All right, what were we trying to say in section 10? Are we
so
trying
basically,
to set
we're
up
basically.
plan requirements for submittal?
Yes, so we're trying to say when you were required to provide a stormwater and erosion control plan.
These were not in the model, they were actually in the original Needham bylaw.
It was.
Yeah,
right,
some of this,
these-
some
Some of them are, yeah.
of that's pulled right from the bylaw. So it should be somewhere in here. We should keep it somewhere.
Well, something to this effect, but not, I mean, I think it should be more generic. Like, the one thing I did not like in our existing bylaw is the standard, like, infiltration method in the bylaw.
Oh, yeah, I know you don't.
Not,
like
not
that.
that that's the, not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's like, this is kind of like. We're telling them they must have an engineer. Do the design, and then they say, but then, well, a survey.
So in
can do
our-
it.
In our current bylaw, under the stormwater management and erosion control, we have, except as
Yep.
listed below, all applications for new construction or redevelopment subject to the provisions of this bylaw, whether or not the issuance of a building permit is required, shall include stormwater management and erosion control provisions.
Yep.
So maybe we just need to say whether or not the issuance of a formal permit or from an issuing authority or something like that. I don't know.
I think that's. Yes. In my opinion, is whether or not you know, people have to control their runoff. Otherwise, the DPW is gonna come down hard.
Yeah.
And again, it's confused, to me, it's confusing in the current where it says all applications, because if you don't need a permit, what are you applying for?
Right.
So I like the fact that we changed it to say all activities, construction or land disturbances, whether they require a permit or not,
Mhm.
need a stormwater management and erosion control plan. Period.
Yeah, in that, not to get off topic, but back to another topic. In 7.4.2, that second paragraph, the relevant permitting authority, building department, planning board, zoning board, Board of Appeals, or Conservation Commission shall review and approve stormwater management and erosion control prior to the issuance of a permit. I almost think we should at least take out planning board and zoning board.
I think, and that's why I think we should just start refer to as the relevant permitting authority shall review and approve. Like, I don't think we should name who the permitting authority is.
But if you have different authorities reviewing and approving, then you're going to get differences in interpretations and applications of the bylaw, and that's problematic.
Hmm. Well, even and so in the stormwater plan itself, in truth, not to take away from building, but if I'm not mistaken, engineering is actually the one that does the approving of the stormwater plan. They do, they not?
Absolutely.
So maybe it shouldn't say the relevant permitting authority. It should say engineering shall review and approve the stormwater management and erosion control plan.
I didn't want to go down
Submitted
that
for
road. I
any
didn't
permit.
want to go down that road, Tom.
Well, and I mean, that's okay, and you know, even in our office, so we certainly, like you said, Joe. We have different opinions on it, and
Yeah.
and so we really need to. When we finish developing this, we really need to. Have a good meeting with not only just internally, but. You know, the people submitting stuff and say, this is our expectations, how we're gonna review it.
Yep.
And just kind of do the checklist. I'm not a fan of a checklist submittals, but at least go through, okay, we're gonna expect this, and this. And you need to provide it to us, and if you can't provide it this way, show us how you're meeting all the requirements in your way. So,
Excellent.
So
Yeah, that's-
our updated regulations have a checklist for
Yeah, so
stormwater.
we should probably have a similar format to what engineering looks for. But you should have a meeting, I would think you guys have a consensus in engineering or a standard operating procedure as to how you review a stormwater plan, what you look at, what correlates to what means what, if this is depicted, if this is adequate enough, what thresholds need to be met, those kinds of things should be on a procedures form, because I'm all about the SOPs. Having a standard operating procedure for how to review a stormwater management and erosion control plan. Period. And it's something that could be used, it's primarily for engineering, because you guys are the ones that do it. But if Joe were to look at that SOP and say to somebody asking a question, well, I don't understand why they keep denying it. Well, if you look here, these are the steps they go through and what they're looking for, and this is what you don't have.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because I as a non-engineer person, as every resident or other people that have called me on it have pointed out, I am not an engineer, so I don't know what you look for on a stormwater management plan. I mean, I have a general idea, but I don't know the specifics or why they might get denied something, and I can't really speak to that. But at the same time, if there was a list of things, these are all the things that they look at or are looking for in their procedures. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And if all those things are met, then you need to contact engineering and find out exactly why they're denying it. Or maybe it's because your calculations are off, or they don't agree with something. I mean, my
You're talking
opinion
about the-
only.
You're talking about that example plan that we're putting together, is that what you're talking
I'm
about?
talking about having an SOP created for all of engineering to use when reviewing stormwater management and
Oh.
erosion control. And it should be something that is available for other departments to look at. They can't necessarily edit it because it's held primarily with engineering. But it should be done the same across the board, so that even when, say, conservation looks at it, do they have the same process for looking at stormwater management and erosion control? If they have a checklist, is that checklist the same as ours? Because if they have a completely different checklist, then that's not a fair, or not even a fair, it's not even the same world. You're comparing apples to oranges.
Well, Paul has created an example plan for street permits, and he's incorporating, stormwater information onto it. That,
Yep.
for example, he can say, this is an example plan that, and that can be modified when we, you know, find things that are wrong with it or needs to be updated. But this is how we're looking at the plans. If you set it up exactly like this, it will make things go a lot smoother. Erosion control showing, you know, information on, you know, existing impervious area, proposed impervious area, drainage calculations and stuff like that.
Right, but you
simplify.
guys should, right, but you guys should have an actual SOP document that also speaks to, or you can hand
what
to
it is.
somebody to say, yeah, to say, this is the threshold that needs to be met. Like, even if they show it on the plan or whatever, you still have to have details over what thresholds are supposed to be met and why and when and what scenarios those would apply to. So if you have a property that is 100% on ledge, they need to meet this standard. If you have a property with great infiltration, they need to meet this standard. If you have, they need to do this. Yes, you can have an example of what they should have on the plan, but how they arrived at that or how they got to it and what the threshold for that is should still be a separate document that says what it is as an engineer you're looking at to determine if that plan, assuming all the stuff that's on it that you've determined should be on a stormwater plan is there, how you determine that that plan is acceptable and meets all of the criteria within a bylaw. Again, I could be completely speaking out of turn and out of my butt and not know what I'm talking about, but to me, it would be like a roadmap to somebody who's brand new to engineering, who hasn't been there for years, and says, okay, I have this plan. It looks exactly like the sample plan, but now what am I looking at? Like, what am I doing with it? Am I looking to see if this amount of infiltration falls between A and B, or if it falls between A and Z, or does it matter if the location of it, if the soil, if they have soil testing, or if they don't, or if they require something or not? Like, I feel like all that should be laid out in an SOP of some kind that says, these are the things that I do every single time, and day after day after day, plan after plan after plan, same thing, so we're comparing the same things each and every time. Otherwise, it's kind of a free-for-all, and you're getting like opinions as to, well, I think this is more important. Like, maybe Paul thinks it's more important that they have, I don't know, less than, I don't know, a certain percentage of phosphorus going in, or those, whatever. But it should be a threshold that is stated as our review process of okay to approve something. Am I completely off base?
Well, I think that can come down the road, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying it needs to be done right now. I'm just saying that that should be what is, or what we're trying to accomplish with a bylaw requiring these specific things. The ability to have that standard review.
Yeah, I mean, some of that though, Kim, is easier said than done for any department. You know, it'd be impossible. I have a brand new inspector, just hired, and you know, he's been in construction all his life, but he's never been an inspector. For me to
Yeah.
write out a list or a thing of everything that we're going to want him to do, or how to work, interpret, zoning, building, all the different, you know, 1,700 pages of building codes that we deal with. A lot of what the way we train a person is hands-on and not just
Yeah.
handing a list and say, do this. So
No, I'm not saying.
I
it all
hear
has
what
to
you're
be a list.
saying, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I'm not saying you have to have a
We
specific
tried
list,
this
but
with
saying,
the old
if,
bylaw, and it was tough.
right, but at the same time, Joe, if you have a new employee and they go out and they do an inspection, they said, yep, all looks good to me, and you ask them a specific question, there's a certain amount of things that you ask, that you anticipate they're gonna look at. I'm not saying that each individual thing needs to be, you know, detailed down to the minuscule specific, but there is a certain number of things that whether you think is important or they think is important, doesn't matter, they still have to check it each and every time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
but most of it,
that's
you
what I'm
know,
saying.
I'm not.
Can we do
Kind of getting
a,
off track, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think we probably have beat on the attorney comments sufficiently to harm Tom. Let's sort of do a quick time check of what else we want to try to accomplish. One thing that I think we do need to talk about is the schedule. Which
Yeah.
we've, Kim, did you happen in the
I
minutes
did.
of the last meeting, put together a new schedule?
So the only schedule that I have, or that from the last meeting that we mentioned, was that we wanted to have the presentation to the select board on the 10th of June, which I don't know if could happen based on the review of legal or not. That's a question. And that being followed by the public information session, which I did book the Powers Hall for June 17th at 7 p.m. And I have a Zoom link set up for it. I have not advertised any of it, so it's not set in stone at the moment,
Yeah.
but I did go
I
ahead
had
and do
I
those
had
things.
I had those dates, and then I think also we had confirmed, one more stormwater task force meeting on May 28th, is that right?
Correct, we do have one more meeting scheduled on the books, yes, although I feel like we're gonna need more to get through regulations and things like that, but neither here nor there. But we have one more meeting on the 28th scheduled already.
And if we look at the to-do side of the equation, I think as far as the document, we've got the enforcement section to spend some more time on.
Nope, we
And
finished
then-
enforcement last time.
Did we complete it?
Yes, we did. We ended enforcement, and we said we were gonna do the definitions as the next meeting.
So that was really the only the remaining piece.
Correct.
And then now we've got responding to the legal comments. And then we've got whatever we're gonna do on the regulations, whether it's gonna be an outline or what. So those are the to-do things, which,
And we also need to review the presentation. I mean, I gave you guys a potential starting point with a quote unquote draft example of what you could do, but it wasn't voted on or anything. It was part of the informational portion of our last meeting. It wasn't, it wasn't anything reviewed by the group. So that's something that needs to be done and prepared and ready to go for whenever we are going to present to the select board.
Yeah, yeah, I looked over, I mean, you went through it in the meeting and I found it on our webpage, whatever we call it.
Just,
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff there, but I think probably it needs some review and commentary.
Yep.
Okay, so we got that on the list, which is more than one meeting's worth of stuff.
are we gonna run through the definitions tonight?
Well, I wanted to get the schedule, some sort of reality check on it
Yeah, right.
first, and without Kevin here, we probably can't, cause we gotta dovetail it what he wants to do, so. but it's
Yeah,
gotta
I don't
get
know if
talked-
Kevin ever got approval from the select board to present on the 10th or not. I'm not sure where that stands. I did my part as far as the 17th for the public information session. But we did state that that needed to happen after, at least a week after the select board presentation. And then also trying to accommodate those that may leave for summer vacations or other things after school gets out. That is the Monday or Tuesday after school lets out. So we didn't want to make it too far into June, but at the same time, timing wise, I don't know what the availability is for the rest of the working group to add in any other meetings prior to that. Happy to do as many as you want or whatever we want, but
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that goes without saying is that. I know for one committee member, I need to sort of step back and look at the whole document.
Mhm.
That we've gone piece by piece and we've built this thing up.
And we were focused like this.
Yeah.
And then, so we were focused so on each section that we need to step back and take a look at the whole thing and.
Yeah,
I wanted to follow up on that point. I know you're in the middle of the conversation, of your point, but. I'm also getting some, existing plans together on, and maybe we can go through them. Okay, here's a plan that has been through our division. How would this be impacted with the new bylaw? And just have like several of them. You know, and just say, okay, what would this person have to do? In order to meet it?
That's great. I mean, I think that's the kind of reality checking that we need
Yeah.
to do. So that sort of fits partly with the step back of looking at a document that's perhaps 95% complete.
We can have like Trip go in and say, okay, coming in, I'm gonna say, I'm trying, to say this is a perfect plan, and someone else saying, well, you don't meet this requirement, and then he'll say, no, yes, I do because of this. Or. You know,
So that's good. Being an engineer, I love that kind of stuff, so, but that is almost like a work session to really kind of do the reality check, and I wonder. Would that just be part of one of our meetings, or is it
yeah,
needed?
or he could just, take a look at a few plans and say, this is how I would meet it, or I think anyone actually could do that.
including a buffer zone.
And buffers, okay, yeah,
so we have the 28th. And then potentially, assuming that Kevin has gotten the approval from select board, we're presenting to them about the recommended changes by the 10th. But we need to incorporate or add, depending on how the meeting goes with Chris tomorrow, we need to incorporate and or change what is in our draft recommendations and then subsequently potentially change what's in our presentation based on whatever changes they recommend. I need to redraft or reformat the document itself so that it looks the same as the other one. And have a meeting with Chris and his team or Chris to go over all the finer points after the meeting tomorrow. So somewhere in either in between now and the next meeting, meaning somewhere between the 15th and the 27th, that conversation with Chris needs to happen. And then we have our regularly scheduled meeting on the 28th. But I don't know that everybody on the board is going to be available, and I'm questioning, do working groups have potential subcommittees where you could have a few people who are available and can commit a couple of days in between there to do that kind of work and then present it to the group? I don't know. I don't know if that's allowed.
Yeah, I certainly could, do like a Teams call with, you know, with a few people, and so it'll be no quorum, right?
Right. So I mean, it's not like you're necessarily, well, that's the thing though, but if you're saying, should we incorporate Chris's comments or whatever, it's kind of got to be, I would assume it has to be a quorum with the group. So
Oh, yeah, yes,
I'm questioning if we can actually fit something else in, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe the schedule for Kevin and Josh specifically and others were a bit tight in these coming weeks. So the
Yep.
28th was difficult to get to anyways. And then having the 10th as the next date, I would say anything we're going to do with this document, whether going through legal, changing, review, whatever, essentially needs to be completely done like by the 30th. June 30th needs to be the end all date. I don't know that given the amount of work that needs to be done, we can get to that by the 30th.
Yeah, I don't think it's realistic.
So is there magic around the 30th?
Only that we need, if we're presenting on the 10th to the select board, it requires having gone through legal and us voting or you guys voting and deciding what our actual recommendations are going to be. And that gives me a few days to adjust the presentation, however you guys decide it needs to be adjusted, and have a presentation, a workable presentation to be able to present to the select board and subsequently the public on the following Tuesday.
I don't think the June 10th presentation is realistic. You know,
Okay.
I think
Agree with you, Joe.
it's more important to get this right than it is to get a presentation done.
I
Yeah,
don't disagree.
I
And
think
again,
we're
a
all in
lot of
agreement.
a lot of their push to have things happen on the 17th, by the 17th at the latest, is because I guess school gets out on the 13th and then people leave town for vacation. But like I said at the last meeting, we're also anticipating the public meeting to be available online, like it's a hybrid meeting, not only in person, but online. So I don't necessarily, again, just my personal opinion, and I'm just a silent partner here, but I don't necessarily see it a problem of having this informational session sometime in July, but I also don't know, or even August, but I don't know what the appetite for select board is, or when do they continue to meet through the summer, or do they take time off? I have no idea how that works.
Could we take that June 10th date that was for select board and use that as one more stormwater meeting of our group?
maybe
I
without
mean, no, I mean, they're gonna be, that's where that means Josh and Kevin are at the select board.
Okay, yeah, of course, so.
the 11th.
I feel strongly that we shouldn't be doing any kind of presentations, in my opinion, until at least July. I'm not even kidding, maybe even August. But that's my feeling, and I don't know what the feeling is of Kevin and Josh are, or the rest of the group that isn't here tonight. But I feel like it doesn't have it doesn't give me the warm fuzzies to present something that we're not entirely sure is complete or done. And also,
Yeah, right.
I think we're all in agreement and feeling the same thing, and just the legal review in itself was, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a wake-up call that, you know, there's stuff that needs tending to get this thing whipped into shape, so.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I
we'll
think having
probably-
everything done by the end of July is more realistic in terms of time, but also it gives us enough time if we do public presentations or whatever in August, it gives us till the end of August and the beginning of September before we have to have things submitted for the October town meeting. But we need to be done with everything and ready to present for the October town meeting. Tom, what is it, 30 days before the town meeting, I think?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, yeah, it's 45 days before we have to get on to the, I mean. We need to get our, articles ready by 45 days, I think that's.
And
actually
when is the
there.
October's town meeting?
And, but they still vote on stuff throughout that process, so we just have to have our preliminary stuff in. I
So
think it's
October, when is the October town meeting? Is that the seventh?
Second week in October?
Yeah, I think it's.
What's the date?
It's usually the second week in October, the Monday.
I thought it
So
was
the
March.
October sixth potentially, October sixth,
Yes.
Yeah,
something like that? Okay, so 45 days prior to that is,
well, just, right. That doesn't mean everything has to be voted on, it just means that. We need to get articles ready.
right, so essentially we need to have our articles ready 45 working days or 45 days?
Days,
So 36 and.
and I could be wrong on that,
45.
Ken, but
So we would have
So it
to,
brings back.
So we
August.
would have to have
Yeah.
everything complete and done for submission for town meeting by August 21st.
yeah,
Is where
I'll
I'm
check,
sitting
I'll
right
check
now.
on, I'll check on that timing.
Okay.
But yeah, but that might be just. Because board members have to have sufficient review time to look at.
Yeah, they also gotta get the warrant printed.
Yeah,
Right. So it might just be that we need to have a blurb saying what the warrant is about. Not necessarily the final document, but we still need to have all the details around what that document would include. So we're looking at mid-August to be done with everything, whether it be presentation to select board, public meeting, and draft document, legal review, so on and so forth. By the end of July, so that we have the beginning of August to get all the paperwork in order.
That's way better than June 10th.
That's what I'm saying.
Agreed.
And
so,
I get that they want to try and have a public participation meeting while people might still be in town, but again, where we're recommending it's a hybrid meeting. I don't really know that I feel it's that imperative to have people physically in town when they can attend via Zoom. Janine, what are your thoughts as a resident?
I agree. I don't think we should try to cram this all in before June.
Thank you, and I love you. John, as a resident, does it matter to you of whether or not people are physically in town or not? I'm just asking from a resident's point of view, I guess. I don't know.
for which, for the listening session?
Yeah.
Oh.
The fact that
I
we
don't
have it
know.
available as a hybrid, I mean, it gives you an option. If you're not in
Yeah.
town, you could see, it was that important to you, you could view it online.
Yeah, I don't know, my view of a listening session is it's more of a being there in person and there being charts around the room and
I
it's sort
know.
of a,
I get used to
more of
it.
a touchy-feely,
Yeah.
you know, mingling with as opposed to something that's sort of sterile online, but you know, but you can have it hybrid, have it a hybrid and then hope you can really encourage people to come in person. It would take some publicity and encouragement and talking to the right people.
Yeah, but since we had the hybrid, like you said, the hybrid option, if you couldn't
Yeah.
physically be there, you at least have a way of participating.
Yeah, so, so the vacation and all that, you don't worry about that because
Right,
people are gonna be taking vacations. Starting as soon as school's out. When is
Right.
school out? In the middle of
supposedly
June?
the 13th.
Yeah.
The 13th of June. We were already
The
pushing
real
it to the 17th.
interested parties will be the typical builder that comes in. Cause now they're trying to think of like, all right, who do I have to have lined up in order to continue my permits?
Yeah.
And get that ready.
Yeah.
Whereas the property owners are probably interested, but hopefully, unless they are doing the project manage themselves, then they'll have to figure that out, but typically it's the builder coming in, hiring the engineer, hiring the surveyor, hiring the carpenter, hiring the electrician, plumber, so on and so
Right.
forth.
I mean, do the property owners, the ones that have been impacted back in August, 2023 and
Like, why did you allow this to happen?
subsequently,
Yeah.
are they following? Do they have any, do you get inquiries at all about how you guys doing on improving the stormwater ordinance to protect me?
I think there, most of them are, what is the town doing and improve the infrastructure of the road to protect me rather? And we've had a few that said, how did you approve this? Why did you approve this? Like, because the requirements allow the approval. There's nothing saying
Yeah.
definitively that they cannot do it the way. And then there's some that don't even know where their infiltration systems are. Cause it was never part of the process, and they're probably the third owner since it was been installed, so,
Well, that's why you just soon have them show up in a listening session
yeah.
rather than further down the road. Where they can really.
Right, but
pull
would
it.
they know to go to a listening session? Because they don't think they have anything on their property.
Yeah,
It's going to be well publicized.
yeah,
And some of them are
What-
saying, are pointing at their neighbor's big house and saying, they're the problem over there. But don't tell them I said that, because we're in good terms. It's like,
Kim, what you need at the appropriate point is a good article in the Needham Observer.
What I need is a marketing individual that's hired to do these types of things.
Yeah, because, well, they've had pretty good articles in the past, so, and they're, that they are getting a growing audience, so. I'm sure there's some crummy ones too, but.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
I can totally loop in Amy on she's our communications liaison or whatever, so I could totally
Well,
sync in with her
Josh
and do
will
that
have some
kind of
good
stuff,
ideas
but.
on this topic.
But more to the point, I think as far as I'm concerned, I feel like pushing it to get done for a June 10th and or June 17th is
And I
not
don't think
doable.
Kevin would disagree with that. I mean,
I just think that the stickler of making it so that we do some kind of presentation before people leave for summer vacations is less imperative than what it seems like it would be, because as much as somebody might want to be there in person, if they can't be, there is the option of attending in an
I
online
think
form.
we're all singing to the choir amongst us here. If we take sort of the short-term view of, we do have the one meeting on, what's our date? The
The 28th,
28th, which
Yeah.
is essentially 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We should probably have some homework. For example, Kim, if we've got comments on that select board presentation, we all ought to take a look at that and give you feedback so that thing can continue to refine.
well, I don't necessarily know if we should comment on that until Tom has that meeting with Chris to find out
Okay.
exactly what legal is gonna have us change on it.
Yeah, which maybe then the shorter term question is, what's the mechanism for Tom to communicate with the rest of us? I don't think we wanna wait to the, our meeting, so
Yeah,
can you get out a communique, you know, in a few days after, or
yeah, yeah.
is there anything legally we can do to communicate?
I think Kim, you can send stuff around as staff. So I can show you, and then if it comes from you,
Okay. I mean, I
I
can
really
send
don't-
out, I can send out the information and I can post it to our SharePoint site. It's just if
Yeah.
it's anything we have to agree to, we have to be in an actual meeting.
right, right. No,
But just,
I just-
it's informational, I mean, we're all be interested to. And I guess also part of it
See
is,
my notes, right,
is the follow-on steps, cause I suspect that there's gonna be.
Yeah.
Either I don't know, maybe it's would that be a useful thing on the 28th to have a regular meeting just dedicated to finalizing the attorney's comments or hearing in person?
I think that's gonna be
unless you-
the most
yeah.
advantageous use of your time on that day, yes.
I think also go through, maybe, you could see my notes, maybe that would get posted too.
Yeah,
I have some notes too, some of them are, some of them may be worthy, some may be worthy in a regulation. And I went, it was like just a quick run through, so maybe, go through them again. Can I ask while we're here, there's a few things the attorney said. Regards to why the select board on some instances, and I'm saying why the conservation commission on others. On other senses, I'm talking about the, there's like, if there's an appeal process that goes through the conservation. I don't know why we have the conservation. Section 9(4). And then the attorneys are saying why the select board. For regulatory. Information. In section 6. So I think those. Two comments are like posing all right, which board has. Regulatory authority and appeal authority. On an action on the permit, so.
But why, so legal thing, why the select board, they don't otherwise play a role in it, because the select board approves regulations? I don't know what other.
Yeah,
explanation that could be.
I don't agree with their question, and something
Right.
that's Chris about. But then, on another section, we have, an appeal, Conservation Commission as the appeal authority.
Yeah, I think that section in section 9 is,
Yeah.
The appeals process. Appeal of disapproved applications. I think I should have gotten rid of that one. I think we got rid of that. Because we said, or we were still discussing about appealing stuff because there should be an appeal process. But
Yeah,
we didn't really have a good answer for that because applicant may appeal a permit denial by the designated agent. By requesting Conservation Commission review was from another town. Such a review
native,
was public hearing, which we don't have. that
So
kind of
for
a thing, so-
conservation, they wouldn't appeal it to us, they'd appeal it to DEP.
right, DEP, yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
So maybe this section should be removed. Because we don't really have an appeal process. I mean, if they
Mhm.
don't agree with what we're saying. You know,
I
it's
think-
fine, but
I think what we said on that was that we were going to wait for legal input on the appeal process.
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Okay, What goes around comes around.
Be careful
we-
what you wish for.
The section should
Exactly.
stay there. It's just who should be the, you know, if I tell Tripp he can't build a house because he didn't do X, X, and X, and he thinks I'm wrong, but I don't give him a permit, and he needs to be, there needs to be an appeal process that they can go somewhere and ask a higher authority.
Yeah. And to me, it should be the select board. I mean, I'll talk to Chris about that. Yeah, cause you're right, if it's an order of conditions, they'll go to DEP. And the DEP has the authority to look at local regulations too, right? Am I mistaken by saying that?
Yeah, they don't have anything to do with the local regulations.
Yeah, but I recall, that they may look into not only the state, but they can review the appeal based upon the town's regulations.
Whenever I
appeal.
talk to DEP, they tell me that that they don't have any say over the local bylaw.
They're not gonna enforce it, okay.
No, so I mean, we have permits that are issued just local permits when they're isolated wetlands that aren't covered under Mass DEP. And even though we're issuing an order, it's just under our bylaw and it doesn't even go to DEP to review.
So if they want to appeal that, they have to go to court.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see the specifics of what the attorneys are thinking, because I mean, that's really a legal,
Yeah,
issue more than a technical issue.
Right.
Because I remember when we reviewed that the other jurisdictions, they don't allow an appeal. You know, we were the only ones that were trying to include,
yeah,
an appeal process and then putting the power at the select board level.
yeah, the other one's appeal would go to court.
Yeah.
And that would be, and you're tiring everybody up, right?
Well. We'll look for
Okay.
their valued opinion on that.
Were you suggesting a homework assignment, John?
Well, I was just trying to think of ways to keep everything moving and not totally lay it on Kim to keep churning the document, but, I think we kind of agreed that one of the critical paths is the legal review, so we got something in place. It sounds like a 2 or 3 stepper that Tom's gonna meet. He's gonna circulate some commentary. Kim will post that. And then probably on that next meeting that we have in 2 weeks, it would be, at least in part, to sort of wrap up any loose ends around the legal review and have them come here if you think at that point it's necessary to do. Cause that's really, one big issue. And the other is somebody needs to talk to Kevin about bringing him along with our scheduled discussion. He'll be anxious to kind of know what we're thinking, so.
Yeah, the other part too is that we still haven't, DPW still hasn't approached hasn't scheduled with the select board to talk about our stormwater study that we completed. And that might be more interesting for them to hear first before they go to the bylaw, so I'd rather that go before the bylaw. So they can see what they're in for, or the public can see like what we're looking at, as far as, And I think we've mentioned this multiple times, like every project that the DPW, or I think any entity in the town does, has to have a stormwater component in order to catch up with our mitigation. and our phosphorus removal. But, you know, redoing a road, add infiltration, you know.
So nothing, so that has not been scheduled yet?
It has not been scheduled, been trying to, select board wanted to wait till after town meeting. And then I wanted Bader in on it as well. And, June 10th is not a good time for them. So it would have to be probably the last week in June.
Do you think there's anything coming out of that that ripples into what we're doing on the ordinance?
I think this probably will help them at least think a little bit more about the importance of the ordinance, you know. Of increasing the amount of collection.
Kim? Is Kim there?
Yes, I'm right here.
On the SharePoint site right now at this moment, how complete is the draft copy?
It is what you see here. It is whatever we have written here. essentially.
Okay, so, the only part that really is left is the definitions, right?
Correct, yeah. The only one outstanding for us, plus whatever we added to. I will upload this, the copy that's on the SharePoint right this second is, does not have the comments that Tom added of his own and also from legal. So I will upload a new version of it tomorrow morning. That includes all of these additional items on
I'm
it.
gonna sit down with Justin tomorrow or sometime this week and go over it with them too, so have a fresh pair of eyes looking at it
Okay.
again.
Okay. So I will update the draft that's in there right now. Because it doesn't have Tom's and what he has for legal, although maybe I'll try to add the legal ones from legal as opposed to Tom's iterants of the legal. I don't know.
Mine says,
Um,
all the legal ones, I say legal dash.
okay,
You
Yeah.
See, see
So-
it says legal in the front, yeah.
yeah, so I will update it tomorrow. To be honest with you, it'll probably be tomorrow afternoon, not tomorrow morning, because I have meetings straight through from 8 AM to 3 PM. So it'll probably be tomorrow afternoon, but I will get it uploaded and send an email to the group once that information is out there, so you can review the draft as it stands right now. If I am able to, in the midst of all my meetings, do any kind of reformatting, do you want me to do the reformatting? Or are we waiting until the end of it to understand that the document as it looks right now is not necessarily in the format it will be in, but the content
Oh.
is?
Let me find out through Chris tomorrow and then I can let you know as soon as possible.
What time's your meeting with him?
2 o'clock.
Okay.
Are
So
you
I'm
around?
not gonna change anything in the draft other than to incorporate or save the ones that have the notes written on it from Tom and legal. So that will be uploaded tomorrow afternoon at some point. So by Thursday morning, you should be able to see a copy as it stands right this second.
Yeah,
Thanks, Kim.
yeah, cause
Sure.
I was wondering the same thing
I'm trying to
about,
get the
'cause I've been-
latest
I've been holding off printing a copy of
thing,
the whole
exactly,
document until.
and then
'cause
go get
it's-
another cartridge.
I've
Yeah.
got about 4 that are partials,
Mhm.
unless Kim wants to make us all a copy.
That would be wonderful.
I can absolutely print off copies and have them all sent to you if you would like.
When it's
Or you
final.
guys can come by and pick it up. I don't know which would be easier.
We can
or
print
more
them here.
advantageous.
Yeah, I would,
It's those cartridges that run out, so.
I know, I would be happy to come
We
by
can-
and,
We can print here, so
so,
if you want me to make copies, I'll make copies.
yeah,
Boy, I would love that.
I would too.
Okay, so as it stands right now, I'll make sure that the most up-to-date version of the draft is in the SharePoint site by tomorrow. Thursday at some point during the day, we'll get them printed off. And if you would like a copy sent to you, just let me know with your address. And if you are okay with picking it up, you can just come by and pick it up.
We can have them on the table in my office if you want for people to come by.
Or go to conservation, whichever makes you happy. I don't know.
Which would be really helpful to have that, so you're saying it
Oh,
at
that'd
the
be
end of this
wonderful.
week?
Yeah, you should have something, you should have it by the end of the week, assuming you're picking it up. If you're getting it mailed to you,
Thank
I
you.
can't attest to the swiftness of the public post office.
Well,
Don't-
just
don't
send us
mail
a
it.
word.
If anybody wants it delivered, I'll bring it to your house. I'm happy to, I'm out in the field all the time. I'm all over the place.
Thanks, Joe.
Not an
I,
issue.
I can pick it up.
Let me know.
My car's programmed to come here to the Public Works building, so.
But that would be wonderful. So say by Friday, you think,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, if Kim's ready, yeah.
Just send us a note, an email when it's ready. We won't,
That would be
if it's
wonderful.
Monday, that's fine too. It
Okay.
would be just helpful to have it. So that we can all look over that whole document prior to when meeting in 2 weeks.
I
Okay,
agree.
sounds good. I can do that.
I agree.
Yeah,
Except how many changes in the definitions do you think we're gonna have?
We could have a lot, but I think that's the minuscule portion of what we have to do, just making sure what definitions are in there. I think that's a fairly standard, because a definition is a definition. It's not like you can read it another way. It's kind of, it is what it is. So I feel like that could be fairly quickly gone through, but, Tom, part of your conversation with Chris tomorrow should be seeing if he is available for the 28th meeting at 7 PM. To kind of go over the draft as it stands now, the comments they have and what they're saying, especially given any feedback you give him tomorrow or questions or clarifications that he provides to you tomorrow. That might be the next meeting, the best use of our time for the next meeting. And then also next meeting, we would have to vote on dates of availability for the month of June. And then also discuss an alternate select board presentation and a public listening presentation. And then I can change those dates and those.
So June 10th is not, will be out. And
I
we'll
think
cross
June
off
10th should be off the table. I don't think we're
Yeah.
anywhere close to being able to present it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I suppose they could request it anyways, and we could do it because it's only supposed to be broad brush strokes, but at the same time, it needs to be with a heavy caveat that this is also still pending legal review. Like we don't necessarily
Yeah.
know that legal is going to approve it yet, so.
Yeah,
This is
I
what
can
we're,
reach out to Josh or Kevin and see what their thoughts are tomorrow.
okay. So I think we should move the public session to the middle of the summer. I know it's not ideal, but I don't think rushing it is helpful to anybody, the public or us.
Can you just, Kim, incorporate that into the minutes? Is it sufficient
Absolutely.
to say that the consensus of the committee was such and such? We don't need to vote on it, do we?
I think so.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's not, we didn't vote on having what date it was either, because we weren't sure if we could get the room booked, so.
But this would be a good way to document that we
Yep.
all are on
Yep.
record that we need.
So
more
your
time.
homework is to review the draft after it's printed out in physical form for you. If you need a physical copy brought to you, please please provide your address, and I will give Joe a list of places to take them to.
Yep.
And if you can look
What
at the
service?
draft. If you can look at the draft and have a good handle on the comments from legal, again, depending on Tom's review tomorrow, there may be more added to it, but I'll make sure they're up and he gets them printed this week. And you'll either get them on Friday or Monday. The other one is to look at your calendars and see what dates would be possible for additional meetings in the month of June and quite frankly, the month of July as well, just to have it on hand, definitely for the month of June, but just to look ahead at July, especially if we're gonna do any kind of presentations. If the board needs to be there, that would be helpful. Also having, looked at and at least form an opinion on any of the slides or other things in the presentation, just as a cursory overview of the types of things we might be looking at, just to have some thoughts and ideas behind that ahead of time, might be a good homework assignment as well.
You're loading us up.
And then lastly, recommend a raise for Kim. I'm just saying,
On your trip?
I did go on my trip. Yes, thank you.
Have you been already?
I did. I went.
Oh, okay, okay.
I went. I saw. I came back. Was sick the following week. It was great.
Oh, oh dear.
It was great, but that's all right. Neither here nor there.
So,
I
so-
think those are the priorities of how we should work it at the moment.
well, that's a nice wrap up, Kim, on our assignments. But we maybe should just be sure we've given Tom all the input that we can for his meeting. Did you have any more on your list for us?
Yeah, I have one more item, which is, section. What is it? It's assessments,
Oh,
section 7, I need to make sure that we are okay to put any stormwater mitigation assessment fee in here.
So legal's
don't-
questioning, their question on here
Yeah.
is that they don't understand the need for it. But like we were saying, we just want to make sure that stormwater assessment is on.
Yeah.
Like our statement on it was just because we wanted to make sure that the assessment is part of the bylaw, like it's there. Maybe
Yeah.
we don't need to put it in a bylaw. Maybe it's just something that we're
Well-
able to do, but.
I want to check with Chris because this has been a controversial,
Yeah.
even though it's a $30 fee a year.
Yeah.
It's been quite controversial in the people who are, who've been contacting you specifically.
Mhm.
I don't think it's the fee that they're complaining about, it's the government that they are.
It's
You
it's the premise behind it because they know that the fee will increase as that all fees do, in municipal, so it's not like it's not going to at some point. And quite frankly, maybe we need to take that out and just have municipal authority to do it in the bylaw, and that is enough. But we had taken what we had in the, and our initial responses and put it in here just as a try to get it in here type thing, but if legal doesn't feel that it's appropriate to be in a bylaw, then it's not in a bylaw, like that's just.
Yeah, I'll just check with them. I would like it in there just for the fact that it gives it could give the select board authority to, waive fees that, when people go well beyond, the requirements.
Yep.
Or, so that was my thought on it. It's like,
Right.
because we've been trying to develop I'm not sure what you call it. A reduction in fees if they do certain things,
Oh, a credit program, yeah.
the credit, yeah.
So that could be the case, I don't know, but if you wanted to ask Chris about that tomorrow, that would be
Yeah.
great as well.
Yeah.
Just
that
as
would
a
take
time
one-
check, it is 9:15.
so unless there's any more business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Joe has motion to adjourn. Who seconds?
I second.
Okay.
2 seconds.
Sue
2
seconded.
seconds,
Okay,
Oh,
Tom.
sure.
yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
John, yes,
Janine.
Yeah,
Janine,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm
Thank
sorry for the
you.
late night. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
better.
Kim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hold on
Bye,
a
guys.
second, guys. Let me.